Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of the Golden Years retirement community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Ike Eisenmann and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. Today, we are thrilled to welcome the president and publisher at Penguin Workshop at Penguin Young Readers, the executive producer of the terrific Netflix series Who Was, author of many books, including the current Pathfinder Society, noted Madonna expert, and a fellow New Yorker, Francesco Sedita. Francesco, thanks for joining us today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
All right,
fellow New Yorker.
Yes, fellow New Yorker. Well, I'm even more so, I'm a Brooklynite. So.
Love it.
So let's see, to start with, to be a Madonna expert, is that something that you can declare on your own, or is there some certification required?
You know, it's so funny. I think I pale in comparison to most of my friends because I spent the weekend with a friend out on Long Island this weekend, and it got two of the albums mixed up in the order that they were released. And he was like, I can't believe you don't remember the order of the albums. So I think I'm failing, but I missed up Erotica and Bedtime Story, and that is pretty amateur of me. So
well, I'm glad you said that, because the next question was about that, because you posted on your Instagram story one time about what's your favorite Madonna album, and it disappeared before I can answer. So what was yours?
I think it has to be Like a Prayer.
Have you considered the Dick Tracy album? Because I love that album.
Yeah, you know, I do too. Oh my God, I completely love that album, and it gets a lot of play in these years, a lot. Because it's a great album.
Oh, there's the what's it, the Hanky Panky song. I love that song. I love it. I play it like it's in my list, and I play it repeat it a lot.
I got married about almost 5 years ago, and when my husband and I kissed, Like a Prayer played.
Oh, really?
How perfect is that?
I felt like it was the best way to bring some kind of religion into the ceremony.
Well, I have to just name drop myself here, because my connection to Madonna is I actually did some work with her on her documentary. And I was the business I was in at the time was called ADR, and we did post-production sound work as a group of actors, and she needed a lot of sweetening and work done to smooth out the documentary, and so I ended up spending 6 hours on a soundstage with her. One of the great experiences of my life. Yeah, she's a fantastic, absolutely fantastic, consummate professional, just fun and incredibly funny. So yeah, that's my little
This was Truth or Dare?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is. See, I think you're beating me already.
Well, no, it wasn't a
in
contest,
the expert category. No, just in the expert category.
No,
I'm losing my sharpness around her, I think, unfortunately.
I was so hoping that story was going to lead to, and she came over and smacked me across the face.
Right.
No, it was so funny because we knew we were going to work with her, and she carries a reputation, you know, like that can go both ways with a lot of people, either being, you know, difficult or demanding, or people are just intimidated, and we were all a little intimidated. And the joke amongst all of us was, well, you know, if things get really bad, we can always sacrifice her to you because she likes younger guys. So it was, yeah. But it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't that way at all. She walked in, put us all at ease right away, and we really had a great time working with her. Yeah,
love that.
Yeah, so there you go.
I do want to talk about something that you are an expert in, and Ike and I devoted one of our shows last year to our favorite childhood books, and I had to enlighten him about the best book series ever created. And while reading about you, I was thrilled to find out that you were also a huge fan of the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
What was it about that series that you loved so much?
I mean, this is a big part of my publishing program too, because you know, as a kid, I was such a reluctant reader. So at Penguin Workshop, we really try to make books, you know, for every kid, right? The voracious reader, the reluctant reader, the graphic novel reader, you know, all the categories. And, you know, for me, I think, you know, my parents are really both great readers. My dad is that kind of like bent up paperback, next to the bed that he sort of brings around with him. It's in the car, it's in the kitchen. My mother is like the pristine hardcover, next to the bed with the beautiful bookmark. But they're both really big readers, and it must have been torture for them to see me as a kid not wanting to read and not liking to read. But it really wasn't until, and every Friday we would go to this bookstore, and my sister and I would get money to spend on a book, and I would be like, I want to buy Smurfs. I don't want to buy books. And it was when I found Choose Your Own Adventure that I really started reading, because I think for me, what something that got unlocked was, I would be embarrassed about how slow I would read. And in Choose Your Own Adventure, no one knows where you are in the book, because you're going from page 1 to page 90 to page 38 to page 120. So you're hopping around the book. So there's no tip off to the fact that you're a slow, terrible reader. And I think that was the thing that hooked me. And also, to flip around a book and go on an adventure in a book is like, it was like a dream come true for me.
Oh, yeah, by the way, where is it? If you could see it right there.
Yeah, The Cave of Time. That's a good one.
Which was some of your favorite? I actually reached out to Edward Packard, and I haven't heard back yet. I wanted to try to get to him to come on to interview him. But which one was some of your favorites in the series?
The one that you just held up for sure. And then I'm blanking on the name, but it was an underwater one. I can't remember the name, but the cover is like, it's like under, like deep underwater.
Yes.
Yeah, it might even be called like Underwater.
I think it's Under the Sea to Journey. Under the Sea.
Yeah, something like that. That was definitely a big one for me.
I showed my daughter. My daughter's name is Maya. I showed her Mystery of the Maya because I've always been fascinated, and she hates every single time I allude to that stuff.
Right.
But I love that.
Well, what were some of your other favorite, once you started reading, your favorite books as a kid?
Yeah, interestingly, I think Call of the Wild was a really important book for me. I also think because it was one of the first books that I sort of read and really connected to, that wasn't Choose Your Own Adventure. And at the time, anything Scooby-Doo I'd get my hands on was really meaningful to me. And that made a big difference, especially, I oversee the licensed publishing program with a few folks at Penguin. And, licensed publishing is so important because it's like, that's a way to get a kid to read. If they love that character, they're going to come to that character in a book very happily. And so licenses are really important to me. I'm a collector of things. And like, I just loved having stuff, Smurfs and all that kind of stuff. So, so Scooby-Doo books were really important to me as well.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, what ended up leading you to writing? Did you always want to, and you just weren't a reader, or did you discover it through your more of a your reading?
I don't know. I just started when I was really, I think the first memory I have is in second grade. And I wrote a story about a cat, nothing remarkable. The cat's name was Blackie. He was a black cat. And I do remember that we had the neighbors across the street that my parents used to hang out with, and they came over, and my parents showed them the little book that I had made. And, they were, of course, very lovely about it, but it felt so incredible to me to actually see someone reading this thing that I had written. And of course, illustrated beautifully. But really, I mean, I wanted to be a magician until I was maybe 12. Wow. The writing was just sort of the hobby until somebody booked my act, But I was very passionate about magic. And my dad's brother, my uncle Frankie, used to buy me really amazing sort of professional magic tricks, not like little kid magic tricks. Mm-hmm. And he would teach them to me when he would come over. And so it was a great experience with him, of course, because he was a really fun guy. But I truly thought I would be a magician. Like that was what it was going to be. Writing was just that fun pastime.
Wow. Did you like go do shows for like friends and stuff?
100%. Every talent show, I did it. I used to put up little signs in the house and then like do a show like in the backyard. I was super into it.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah.
When did you decide that this was going to become a career path?
Writing or magic? Writing. So I then I just started writing, and when I was in high school, I went to an all boys Catholic high school, and Athletics were a big part of that program, as I'm sure you could imagine, and athletics are not a big part of my program. So I really became the kid who wrote and who, I worked on the newspaper and was editor-in-chief in my senior year. I wrote for the literary magazine. And I just always felt a real connection to writing. And, I felt I have a very happy place there, even though it's torturous, it's a happy place. And then I went to NYU for writing and started working in publishing and went back to NYU for grad school for writing. So it really has been a lifelong pursuit for sure.
So how did the transition come that you got involved in publishing?
Yeah, so I went to NYU and I finished a little bit early and I moved to the East Village into my friend's apartment, the one who was very disappointed in my knowledge of the Madonna chronology. He's the one I do the podcast with called Queens of the Round Table. So we've been friends forever, about that too. Yep. Sitting around forever talking about nonsense forever. And so I moved into his apartment on Avenue C, and my parents, who are both native New Yorkers, were like terrified that I moved to Avenue C because it was the 90s. It was still Avenue C. It wasn't the chicest, safest place. And so my parents were like, look, you have a little extra time here, and what would you want to do? And I was like, I want to write a show. So I wrote a show. I was a club kid when I was in NYU, and I threw parties at Club USA and the Tunnel. And I wrote my 21st birthday party was at the Tunnel. And so I wrote an interactive show about my 21st birthday party. I wrote 14 characters. And as the audience member, you showed up to a club. It was a small black box theater that we, sort of made a kind of makeshift club in. And you interacted with these 14 characters for the night. And there was a soundtrack that sort of sort of gave us all the beats of what needed to happen and when. And it was great. It ran for 5 years. And it was this incredible moment of like, look, we can actually make things, that actually work. It made no money, but it made a lot of happiness for a lot of people, I think. And then my phone rang one day in my beautiful Avenue C apartment, and it was my mom. And she said, maybe it's time to get a job. And I was like, how dare you? Like, I am like, I'm an ingenue. What are you talking about? How very dare you interrupt this beautiful expression of art? And so truly, my parents are not these people, they have a small group of friends. They are not people who go out to parties and stuff. They're very, they're kind of quiet, with themselves. And they said, we were at this party and we met, and at the time, the man who pretty much owned Random House, and we talked about you, and Random House is going to call you. And truly, the next day my phone rang and it was Random House HR, and I was so pissed. Not because, I was so happy that my parents were thinking of me, but I was like, oh, I'm doing this thing and I feel like it's really important. But I went in for the interview. I wore, I had blonde hair and had a few piercings, and I wore a ruffled tuxedo shirt, sailor's pants, and platform shoes. Because I was like, how dare you? I'm not going to, take this, the man, I'll show you. Right? Not knowing what publishing really was. I was a kid, I was 21. And so like, I didn't know, what publishing really was, which is actually this great, nurturing, happy environment, And I went in, and this poor woman in HR, I opened her, I go through her door, and she's like, oh, you should be in publicity. But I sat down with her. She was lovely, and she really was great. And I interviewed the next day, not in that outfit, in a much more, appropriate outfit, I think, at Knopf, at the adult division of Knopf, and met with an incredible man who is sort of a legend in publishing. He's just retired, actually, named Paul Bogarts. And Paul and I just talked in a way that I that just really turned me on to publishing and to books. And he asked me my favorite book was, and at the time, and it still is one of the favorites, it's Becoming a Man by Paul Monette. And he knew it really well, and he had known Paul Monette, and So to talk to someone about, this book that you'd read and treasured, and, it just changed everything for me about how I thought about the man and publishing, And so I started shortly thereafter, and I've been in publishing since.
Wow. You anticipated one of the questions I was going to ask. I did want to ask you about that show that you had, that off-Broadway show. What was it about? What was it called?
It was called 2021st. So the idea was that you were at the cusp of the 21st year of the main character. The friend who I keep mentioning played me, that poor guy.
So you.
And I wanted to have a role in the show, even though I don't consider myself an actor at all, because the show, it was happening it was literally happening every day differently because of who the audience members were. So I felt like it was important for me to be in the mix of it. So I played.
So it was an interactive show.
Yeah. Like you were going to a party. We just had written all the storylines around you, but you thought, you knew that you were going to something where you were going to have drinks and dance. Because that's what the goal was. I just made all these drag queens and club kids happen around you. And so you get pulled into the bathroom, and you get pulled over to the couch to talk about, who is in love with whom. And, you get pulled onto the dance floor by Athena, goddess of beauty, to do runway with her. And so it was a really exciting experience. And, it's funny, I'm actually throwing next weekend, it's the 26th reunion for the show. So we're having the cast here. I wanted to do it last year, but last year was a little hard to get people in a room together. So hopefully we'll be able to do it next weekend. But and we're going to do a reunion. I have pictures, and I have some of the costumes, and we'll just sort of hang out and drink wine and sort of laugh about it. But we were all really young, and we made something pretty special together.
I can't wait till you post about that.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we'll come back to publishing in a second. Let's shift a little first. Now, this is one of the things I'm always fascinated when I read about you. You mentioned it. You interned at Saturday Night Live in the 90s, and you were there during one of the great runs. You had Mike Myers, David Spade, Adam Sandler, Tim Meadows, all these great casts. This is one of the greatest casts to me in history. How did that come about, and what was it like to be there during that time?
It's a great moment of my past. It came about in a way that things don't come about sometimes in New York. But I started NYU, and I was a freshman, and I went to the Gallatin School, and I was in a class, and we had to write an essay. It was like that kind of basic 101 writing class that you take, in college. And God, it always comes back to Madonna. And I wrote an essay about Madonna. And, and listen, I can write a good essay about Madonna because I feel very passionate about Madonna. But so the woman who was teaching, who actually has become a great friend and mentor, she read it out loud to the class, which was so awkward. And this woman after class was like, my husband works at SNL, and you're really great. You're really funny, and you're really smart. And there's a great internship program there. You should meet him. That's really how it happened. And also, I think they were dating. I'm pretty sure they're married now. But it was Robert Smigel. So wow. It was unexpected. It was that unexpected thing. And she was so lovely. Her name is Michelle. And it happened. They called. I went in for the interview. I wore a blazer that didn't fit. They were sort of like, "Why are you wearing a blazer?" And they were like, "Yep, you'll start in September." So it was the 93, 94 season. And usually you're, at least at that time, the interns were for one season, like, fall or whatever. But I did fall and spring. So I did a full season of episodes, and it was fantastic. It was, I had a full class load too, and I was at SNL probably at the office like 40 or 50 hours a week, but it was like glorious, right? Look, I made coffee for a lot of great people, but they were also, many of them were lovely people. And there were times, I would sit at the writer's table. I was a nervous wreck, but I, every now and then would say something that people listened to, which was really great. I got to be friends with, some really great people. I met incredible celebrities, which was so wild. Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger hosted, because they were together, they hosted the Valentine's show.
Mm.
And, I'd met a bunch of people by that time because it was February, but I'll never forget when he walked in that room, I was like, Jesus, he is a superstar. Like you could just feel it, he just has this thing, and she was the loveliest person. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I smoked Newport cigarettes. It was a weird time. Because everybody smoked and I just felt like I had to smoke.
Yeah, I think that choice and brand is probably what makes it odd. But anyway.
No, just about.
I don't know why.
Yeah. First of all, I got to ask before I even ask this question: have you ever gotten to meet Madonna and throughout anything now?
No, I got very close once, but it was actually through a work event when I was at Scholastic, and I kind of thought it was going to happen, but it didn't happen. But I was sort of, this close to her and like literally dying, and it was like a work event, so I kind of had to like keep it together.
Oh no!
Not cry,
Oh, that's terrible. That's horrible. No, I went, just about everyone from the cast that you mentioned went on to like superstardom. I just talk about a couple of them at least. Starting with the ones who passed. I mean, all brilliant. I was fans of them big time, like Phil Hartman, Chris Farley, and recently Norm Macdonald. You were closest with Norm. I remember you a little bit.
Yeah, I got pretty close to Norm. He he's just was such a lovely, sweet guy with a wicked sense of humor. And he actually would read my skits and stuff. Like he would be like, go write a skit about this. Like he would actually like give me some direction, and then we would sit and talk. And like, it was just so incredibly generous, and he was just so nice and kind. So when he passed, it would, that really brought a lot back for me, of course. And it's so sad. It's such a sad story, but he was a delight. I mean, honestly, so many of them were, because I think so many of them were so young. I mean, Sarah Silverman was just a few years older than I was. Jay Moore had just started, and he was just a few years older than I was. Because I was 19, and I think they were like, 22 maybe. So, there was a real connection there. I did stand up at that time too, which was really fun and something
we have that on the question.
Oh yeah,
what?
No, we're gonna get to that for sure.
Geez.
But no, just given some of the
you
skits
did
you wrote for Norm, I mean, did anything you work on in that capacity make it to air?
No.
Yeah.
But it sort of wasn't. I mean, at least at the time, I never really thought that's what was being asked. I think it was more like, let's get the training wheels off a little bit. And I'll never forget one time, the first round that he read, it was like one or two skits. He was like, you surprised me because I thought everything was going to be like, a poop joke. And I was like, oh, no, that's not my humor at all. He's like, no, it's great because a lot of times, this happens and it's like all poop jokes. And I was like, wow, good to know. Yeah.
Gosh.
But yeah, there were some obviously tremendously talented people in that season, and tremendously kind people. Mike Myers is such a kind, funny human, and I would say really took care of me in many ways. He was a great guy, and knew my mother loved coffee talk, and he would like sign stuff for her, and he was just so nice. Yeah, he was a lovely guy.
Well, I mean, not to mention Chris Farley, who was such a genius, and I loved him dearly. Did you see any signs of him heading down that unfortunate path? Or
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, certainly I don't know that if I was intuitive enough or connected enough at 19 to really see anything, but he was just exactly what you would think, just this big guy.
I've heard that.
Huge presence and really nice. I mean, because he was so loud and big, I think I was a little intimidated by him, but he was a sweetheart, and he would sort of poke fun at us, the interns, in the best way possible, more as a big brother than as a bully, you know what I mean? And I always just felt kind of happy when he was around. So I don't really, I don't know that there was anything to see necessarily.
You ever just like stop and look around like, I can't believe I'm here with all these
all the time. All the time. I mean, also though, you're so busy and so exhausted that you don't necessarily, the brain can't get that far with it sometimes, because it is a pretty grueling, week, but yeah, it was a lot of like pinch me, like I cannot believe this is happening. It was really
I know
great.
you had mentioned limo rides with Sarah Silverman.
Oh
Like
my
any
God,
good
yeah.
anecdotes from parties or anything?
Yeah, so Sarah and I became friends, and she and Melanie Hutzel shared an office. That meant you shared a car to the party. And interns, I mean, they didn't necessarily even want interns at the party, but Sarah would be like, just get in the limo. And I'm like, but I what happens when I get to the party? And but the guy at the door was also an intern, so he would, it was all fine. I mean, I think there was some drama around it, if I remember correctly, with a few of the executives, but the parties were great. I mean, of course they were, right? I mean, because also the people, the people that would just show up who like are in the city, and want to go to the Saturday Night Live and to the party, so you get just these other celebrities. Anthony Kiedis would be there quite a bit, and he was so nice. And I have a nickname of Rocky, and I was called Rocky all the pretty much full time then. And he would be like always in like, this is how I always remember him, like silk pajamas, like sexy silk pajamas with like a bun in his hair, or his hair in a bun, and like he would just like kind of sit down next to me in the green room and just like start talking. Like he was a shock. I don't know, that's not fair. But I was very surprised by how kind he was to an intern, which is more on me, I think, than him. But Bon Jovi, was there once. It was, we had a great time, and I would sneak a friend in to the parties, and
I bet you were really popular with your friends at that time.
I really was.
Yes.
And my friend Anne Marie stole Bon Jovi's straw. I think she might still have it. She's like, she's like a full-grown adult. She has a kid. I really think she might still have that straw, like in like a memory box or something. It was great. Billy Joel was on. I got to sit in the audience while he rehearsed. I mean, it was, Nirvana was on. I met Kurt Cobain, and I met Courtney Love, who was amazing and so fun and cool. They were like, "Oh, Courtney Love is downstairs. Can you go pick her up?" And I was like, like, why? What? Okay, sure. Hi, I'm an intern. I'm like a chubby, closeted, nervous intern. Nice to meet you. But she was so amazing. She had like, like that classic, for that time, the red lips, the white hair, the white kind of like silky satiny gown, like she was something. It was really exciting. It's like the best elevator ride of my life,
Wow. Well, shortly after that, I mean, Mike Myers and Adam Sandler just completely blew up and exploded. Did you see that? Did you see that coming?
Yes. I mean, I don't see how you couldn't have. They were just full of such great energy, and, and just such funny characters. I mean, I definitely had a huge crush on Adam Sandler, which I'm sure, if he even remembers who I am at this point, remembers that I had a crush on him, because I don't think I hit it very well. But you could just see it. I mean, you could just see how incredibly talented they were, and you could see that, I mean, there's like a real comedy machine there, right? That really knows how to like sort of work people through. I mean, it doesn't work always, of course, but yeah, you could tell for sure. Sure.
You still keep in touch with anyone from that time or not?
No, I keep in touch with someone who is an intern in the photography department a bit, but I bumped into Sarah a few times. I bumped into Adam Sandler a long time ago and chatted with him for a bit, but that was a long time ago. He was actually with Norm Macdonald when I bumped into him. Yeah, that's right. But no, not really, no.
I do want to ask now. See, you anticipated another question. I want to ask about the stand-up. So you did it at a Cafe Wa, and I mean, you did a Comedy Cell. I used to go to Comedy Cell and Cafe Wa all the time.
Wow, you're good.
So I was wondering if I saw you, because those are around the years that I was there like constantly. So I may have seen you there.
Oh, that's so funny.
So what was that experience like?
I really leaned into the whole experience of being at SNL, and I don't know. I think I asked my parents for whatever birthday, my 20th birthday or something. I think I asked them 19th birthday. There was like a stand-up comedy like class that I'd read about in the Village Voice. And I thought, well, let me just sort of do it, sort of officially, like through a class or whatever. And there was a guy who was at a hotel on like Broadway and like 50 something street. It was a little weird, like in a conference room, but it was 6 weeks maybe. And, you developed an act, and I will say about this entire time, I don't want to say regret because that's not fair, but I wasn't out, so I wasn't completely in myself and I wasn't completely who I was going to be. I mean, I was 19, I get it, it happens. But so my comedy was sort of stilted, right? Because I couldn't really be myself or talk about myself in the way that maybe I would have or would now, but my comedy, was fine. My skits were fine. But so then the graduation was at Caroline's, which was kind of crazy. I know, it was such a wild end to that thing because you're like in this shitty conference room and then suddenly you're like at Caroline's. And like my parents came and all my friends from NYU came and it went well. Like it went really well. So I was like, okay, so let me kind of do this a bit more. And I was at the Duplex. I was part of the Stars of Tomorrow contest at the Duplex and like made it through a couple rounds. And then, I wrote my show and my show happened and I just sort of moved away from it, but not really for any reason except for the fact that, life just sort of changed lanes a little bit.
It's funny because like I give you credit because like it's something I always wanted to do and I never had the guts to get on stage.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Oh my God. I was just gonna say, I think writing is hard enough, but stand-up comedy just is brutal. And I have to tell you, I've done a lot of things as a performer, but that is the last thing in the world I would want to do is try to get up and tell jokes in front of people and be funny. Oof. I mean, I really have a lot of respect for the effort. Did you ever have any like just completely uncomfortable or terrible experiences on stage?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure.
Because audiences will give you a really hard time.
I know. I sort of got off track because I was getting more comfortable, right? I mean, that's the whole point, right? That's why you just do as much as you can. And my cousins had come to the Duplex. My cousins Mark and Steven, who I'm close with, and had come to the Duplex and to see me. And I guess because they were in the audience, I felt a bit more at ease because they were there. And I sort of just went on a tangent about a story from my dad's family that sort of made no sense. And like, I just lost my way and then had to kind of like bring it back into like what the routine was. And I could just feel like the room kind of just like shrinking, like, oh God, get me another drink, Yeah, that was a terrible, terrible moment.
Oh, goodness gracious, good grief.
And it was all the sacrifice of my dad's family, which is even worse. Like, leave your grandmother out of it, dude. Like, I don't know why that even happened, but it did.
Oh, wow.
Okay, now this guy, you do not, I'll say this, you do not have to answer this. And if you don't want, we can just edit this one right out. You had mentioned a RuPaul story, and I've been dying to hear this story. So.
Oh, right. I told you I would tell you the story, right?
Yes. So.
Oh, God. So.
I've been waiting like 3 years for this story.
A friend, when I was at SNL, the woman I said I keep in touch with, who was in the photography department, excuse me, she had a very good friend who was a very good friend of RuPaul's. So this is like in the mid 90s. And RuPaul came to a show. I can't remember who the host was, but RuPaul came to a show. And then when I got to the party, and I met RuPaul, like just hello, like in passing, RuPaul dressed not in drag. When I got to the party, my friend Laura was sitting with her friend and RuPaul and a bunch of other people. And so I sat down with them. And Laura very kindly said, Rocky, my nickname, Rocky, is doing stand-up. And RuPaul was super, super lovely and said, oh, wow, that's so great. And where are you doing it? Whatever. And then said, it's so important that we gay folk have representation out there. And I was not out.
Please.
Oh, no.
And RuPaul outed me. And
Oh
listen, if anyone is going to out, if there's anyone to
Might as
out you
well.
before you're
yeah,
ready,
not a bad pick, but
I'll take it. I'll take RuPaul. But oh my God. And it's that thing, where I just froze because I'm sure my friend Laura had thought about it, and I was so close to coming out, but I hadn't yet. So it was right now it's a glorious story, and I'm so proud of it. I'm so happy. But when I left that party, I just was like, oh God, there's like not enough vodka sodas in the world to make me feel better right now, Yeah. But it was so sweet. It was all done in such a sweet way. It was, not obnoxious at all. It was a lovely, lovely thing to say. And now I really hear it, but God, I just want to crawl under that table.
Well, like you said, you did have a fantastic story. So that's
exactly.
That's the main thing. Well, sticking on comedy, that's when I first saw you teaching the comedy workshop at SCBWI. Yeah. That's when I first met you at a Florida conference. You were fantastic, and I was thrilled that I made you laugh a couple of times, so I was happy. But is humor something that you're passionate about? That's something important to who you are?
It is. I think that's a really nice question. I think, for me, I feel like I'm the youngest in the family. And so I think that I sort of had to be pretty funny to get some attention. And I just think that, life is really hard. And so if you can laugh at it a little bit, it's really important. I think that's really what compels me. And I think, it's easier to be funny than it is to be dramatic. Dramatically funny is really nice too, but humor is a really important part of me, and I'm really experimenting with that in my writing a bit, because I went very happily. I went to NYU and I sort of, quote, learned to write, and I can give you those flowery, beautiful 15 pages, and I love to do it, but I've been really pushing my own writing to be a bit more lighter and funny, because I think that it's important. And
humor is easier, but I think to do humor well is much more difficult than
yeah. I just mean in life humor, just to make someone smile instead of making them upset. Just focusing on the tough stuff is really important to me.
Well, you have a lot of humor in the Who Was series now. How did that come about? And you've written a couple of them as well.
I have, but I'll never do it again.
Oh, really?
I mean, I love that. I love the book series. I love it so much. My husband has written a few, and then we wrote a Broadway book together.
Right.
And oh my God, it's so hard. It's just so hard. It's so much research. There's a really specific way that the sentence structures work, because we really think, it's like an 8 to 12-year-old reader. And I would say the sweet spot's like 10, but because you get that 8-year-old or even a younger kid, the sentence structure has to be very simple, because you're really telling complex stories, about people, places, and things, in history. The book series started in 2002, way before I was at Penguin, and started pretty quietly. And then when I got there, it was kind of making some noise, and Barnes and Noble was really excited about it, and there was just that idea of like, let's pay more attention. And we brought another editor on, and then suddenly, it really started to click, and we have just over 300 titles now. And, it's such a beautiful, beautiful series. And because for me, I mean, even for me as an adult to read, when the books are routing and the manuscripts are routing, and I'll read one, it's like, oh my God, I completely forgot about this person, this moment in history, this story. So it's been really great for my brain. And kids really love them. They collect them because of the fun covers. They really do collect them like baseball cards, and that's really kind of fun. And I had an idea for a TV show, and I just started to talk about it with my then boss, and he was like, that sounds kind of great, let's see if we can figure it out. And he gave me a small budget. And he said, why don't you, he knows that I have a friend from NYU who I write the Pathfinder Society with, Prescott. He said, why don't you guys see if you can figure it out, And so we had another friend from NYU write a short script, and we filmed it in Bucks County, Pennsylvania with these great kids. And it was just like a proof of concept. And our two subjects were Andy Warhol and Laura Ingalls Wilder. And it was great. These kids were great, and they were so committed and dedicated to it. We made like a 6-minute, sort of proof of concept film, and I brought it with a coworker to something called Kids Screen, which happens in Florida, where all the sort of kids entertainment stuff sort of happens in a long weekend conference. And we showed it to Netflix, and they were like, "We want this!" Like, it was unbelievable.
Oh my God.
First meeting, she put the headphones on, she watched it on her iPad, and she was like, we're doing this. And we did it. And we won an Emmy, and we were nominated for 6 Emmys, and it was a wild little ride. It was really, really fun.
So it all originated just at Penguin? I mean, this is all from you, and wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, then of course Netflix came on, and then we brought in people who really know how to make a show, and writers who really know how to write a show, and and they also sort of what we did was a bit kind of cleaner, purer in a way, I think, for the proof of concept. And the showrunner, who's a great friend of mine, Rich, he brought on a team of writers who like really were from late night, many of them, and so like they had that edge that we really wanted, and I think that's what made the show so crackly and sparkly.
So what were your responsibilities as the executive producer? Did you have any casting or anything?
Walk around smoking a cigar and yelling at people. No, yeah, I mean, here's the thing, once with Netflix, we met with a few showrunners, and we loved Rich. And so once Rich was on board as the showrunner, he started to assemble the team, and he was so inclusive and would show me everything, and I would watch auditions and stuff. And I had opinions, but I also knew that the people in place were the ones who, we really wanted to hear from the most. And the set was here in Brooklyn, and it was over the summer. And I always say, like, for the cast members, it was like probably the best summer camp experience of their lives. I mean, they were in apartments all in Brooklyn, and they were in the studio all day. And a funny part of our studio experience, we were at Steiner in Brooklyn, was so you walk in and you show your badge or whatever, and then there's like little stickers like near the elevator of all the shows and all the floors that they're on, and it's like the Who Was show, and then above us was the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and we're like, what kind of crazy name is that? That is ridiculous.
It'll never make it.
And then we went up to their floor, and we were like, oh shit. I mean, like wardrobe, and but we had peanuts and like cold eggs, and they had omelet stations, and so we were like, oh, okay, maybe one's gonna work. So that was a fun part of that summer, because we got to see a lot of that cast sort of running through.
How are you able to keep it together?
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I had to jump in, because that cast is so freaking talented. I mean, I was absolutely blown away watching them work, and ensemble work is hard enough anyway. Finding someone who can, a group of young performers that can do that kind of consistent and really, really effective work. I mean, I'm just very impressed.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say. I mean, they were all just so lovely and so just delighted to be there. They were just so happy. It was a really nice summer. It was really great.
I just want to know how you're able to keep it together with Andy Daly, because he cracks me up in everything.
He was great. And he was so generous with the kids, and so fun and so nice. And one day I was talking to him, and he was sitting in a chair, and he said, Charles Grodin wrote an autobiography, and in it, he talks about how when you're on set, anytime you get a chance to sit, you must sit. It's like, can I take that piece of advice? It was just the funniest, most random thing. But Andy was great. The kids adored him, and he's such a goofy, fun guy who's so controlled, and so in charge. It was really great to watch him.
Well, how come it only went for one season?
I think you need to call Netflix about that.
Well, because I was,
I'm happy to pass along a phone number or two.
Sure. I mean, this is purely a voyeuristic question on my part, because given that obviously this is all based upon looks or views or whatever, I wonder what their criteria is for moving a show to subsequent seasons or multiple seasons, or letting one just exist on its own. So if you have nothing to say, then that's perfectly okay.
Oh, I have something to say. I'm just not going to say it.
Oh, well, no, I mean,
we'll tag them in the interview when we post.
Are there after show cocktails? If that's the case, I'll tell you there.
Oh, then we'll hang out. We'll hold you to that afterwards. How surreal was it to see your name in the credits, like on the TV show, and then your own IMDb page?
It was so surreal, and it's somewhere around here. And my amazing friend Jen had a still printed of my name and framed for me, and it's somewhere right around here. I just don't know where.
Oh, that's awesome!
It was so it was wild. I mean, it was wild, and it was sort of a hard thing to explain to my parents. It's like, so I make this series at Penguin, and it's about it's very, very just straight biographies, but now it's a comedy show. And watch it. So they were really psyched to see my name. I mean, it really was very moving for them, which was nice.
Well, any more plans to develop anything else for television?
Well, tomorrow's the 16th. On March 16th, we are launching 2 episodes of the Who Was podcast with iHeart, and it really takes a note from the show. It's two figures coming together, and it's a quiz show. And so we have 2 kid contestants, and cool. It has been an absolute dream to work on. The kids are just the best. I mean, I like, can we stop for a snack questions? I love, because we're just getting real kids. Penguin sort of sent out through one of our newsletters that goes to teachers and librarians, sort of hey, we're looking for kids to be on the Who Was podcast, and we're using a bunch of ways to get these kids in, and like it's just been really great to actually see real kids engaging with the books. And we have like special surprise guests come in, and we have actors playing awesome. Historical figures. So tomorrow, the 16th of March.
Look, I saw you post about that. I can't wait to hear that actually.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
I love history stuff, but as a publisher, I see that you mentioned some of the properties that you own, and one of them is like Mad Libs. I saw that.
Yeah.
Mad Libs. I can't believe it's not for kids. Not that it ever was fully for kids, because adults play this, and kids used it always to get in whatever dirty words that they can. But
absolutely.
When did that change, that you like started to say we're going to cater to an adult market as well?
Well, so the whole thing is that when Mad Libs was developed, it was one book developed by 2 friends, right? And so they made it for cocktail parties. The first cover is a martini glass, and the idea was get drunk and do silly word games, and and then over the years it became much more of a kids property for a bunch of reasons. But as I got settled into Penguin, and Mad Libs performs beautifully and always has, and hope, knock on wood, always will, because it's such a great property, I was like, what about like my friends in bars? Like, why don't we get to play? Like, we should play this, So we developed an app that really resonated quite well with adults. And then, we started to do like Mad Libs adult titles. And I think that was sort of an odd word, because it felt like pornographic in a way. And it's like, you can make any Mad Libs pornographic depending on what your brain is, right? I mean, you don't need us to help you there. But we just started to really explore licenses. Really, that was the important thing. And so we have a lot of, adult licenses, from TV shows to movies. And that's been a great way to introduce it back to the adults who probably played when they were kids. It's a great brand.
It sure is, absolutely. There was like, what, Snoop Dogg has one? I think.
Yeah, sure does. Sure does. Yeah.
I also want to talk about quickly the Hardy Boys. I love the Hardy Boys as a kid.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Now I was going to say, no, shouldn't Fenton Hardy be charged with like child services negligence for letting those kids out?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And you also you've worked with Dolly Parton. Now, what's it like to say, Dolly, this needs another revision? I'm sorry.
Doesn't go exactly like that. The book that we did together was Coat of Many Colors. So, those lyrics were set and so beautiful, and really such an important and special song for so many reasons, for her and her childhood. And I also think it just resonates for a lot of kids. So, but I'll tell you, it was such an interesting, wonderful experience because Dolly was so connected to it, to the illustrations. She really had a point of view, and she really helped to make the book really all that it is. And the lyrics are there, and of course that was an easy part. But the illustrations were, it took some time because we really wanted them to reflect her memory and her childhood experience, in sort of a more modern way. And she's a lovely, I mean, this is so obvious, but she's a lovely, incredible partner.
Now, I want to talk quickly. You mentioned before your podcast, The Queens of the Round Table.
Yes.
I've listened to quite a few episodes. It's very
my
entertaining.
goodness, it's kind of you.
But I am complaining that the frequency of the episodes has gotten a lot more sporadic.
I know. That's because Aaron, my partner, moved away. He's in Long Island now, so it's harder for us to get it together. I appreciate you saying.
I listened to quite a few, and then it's like I see months go by between.
I know,
but you do it this way. You can't do it like this.
I know, and we have before, but I don't know. We haven't really gotten together, but one will come out this week because we were together. My birthday is on Friday, so it'll come out for my birthday. He does a little birthday interview for me, so that will come out.
Well, can you tell us a little bit, for everyone just tuning in, could you just tell us a little bit about the podcast itself, the concept?
Of course. So Aaron and I have been friends for almost, oh my God, like 28 years or something. I'm sure he'll correct me on this when he hears this. And we went to NYU together and sort of met and didn't become friends, and met and didn't become friends, and then became friends. And we always joke, like, when we're in certain places in our lives or going through a time, we'll say like we need a night at the round table just to like work it out, over a lot of vodka or wine probably. And one night I was out, this is like 2 or 3 years ago, I was out with friends and I made a joke and I said something like, the Queens of the Round Table. And I was like, oh my God, that's an amazing podcast title. So I texted Aaron, I was like, we should make a podcast called Queens of the Round Table. He's like, what do you mean should? We're just doing that. So we started making it. And, it's taken all these different, because we're just doing it for fun. And it's just like, it's just us trying to kind of catch up and sort of talk about things that make us laugh or whatever. But we sort of found a little bit of a pattern. And because Aaron was such an instrumental part of 2021 of the interactive show, and we're having the reunion, we're actually going to take some episodes coming up to do sort of an overview with sound bites from the cast and stuff, and talk about the club scene at that time and talk about the show. So that the Queens of the Round Table will have an interesting little sort of subset of episodes coming up soon.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Now, before we let you go, we wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit about the Pathfinder Society.
Oh, yeah. Wow, you guys are great. You really do your research. Thank you. So Pathfinder Society is a graphic novel series that I write with my friend Prescott, and we met at NYU as well. And we lived together for a very instrumental summer at NYU. Actually, the summer I came out, that poor guy had to deal with that. And we had always worked on ideas together. He was at Tisch at NYU for directing, and I was at Gallatin for writing. So we always sort of connected on things, and we would enter all these competitions for, pilots, and, we just would do it, and like 24-hour, movie making and all that kind of stuff. And 14 or so, 15 years ago, I lived in Brooklyn at the time, and I was flipping channels, and the Adam Sandler movie Click came on, where he has the remote control that can pause. And I watched it, I was sort of charmed by it. And, and I called Scott, and I think I left him a message, and I just said, let's write Click 2. I don't even know why I thought we should do that, but I said, let's write Click 2. And I said, let's just write something, let's make some money, let's do this. And I saw him shortly thereafter, and he was like, I would love to write something with you, but I don't really want to write Click 2. I want to write something, about these kids. He just really had this concept, like these kids, this group of 5 kids who somehow they have some kind of superpower, or they learn something about themselves, and there's sort of a transformation in them. I was like, can't we just right click and do it in like 2 weeks? Like, does this have to be? So it took us 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Because the deal was there would be, because he has a wife and he has kids and he's a teacher, and we have full lives, and we didn't ever want it to feel like pressure. So we both had to go to licensing show a lot in Vegas. We'd go to Vegas together early and just write for a few days in Vegas, which was really fun. We would just try to squeeze in writing when we could. And we wrote a pilot actually, and got some feedback on it. And a lovely guy that I know through my work life, who's at Fox, said, it's actually really good, but no one's going to buy this. Write a graphic novel, make us realize that we want it to be a TV or a movie, and then we'll buy it. And I was like, oh my God. But I really appreciated that honesty. And I was like, well, I'm never doing that, so forget it. And then I went and I talked to Scott about it. And we were like, whatever, let's just pause. And then I went out for a drink with a publisher at Penguin, who's a dear friend for many years. And he said, I feel like I really need to publish more graphic novels. And I was like, so I was like, look, I have to tell you something. We've been working on a graphic novel idea, and I don't know how I feel totally about telling you this, but I want you to know. And he was like, of course, like, let me see it. So we put it together, and Viking at Penguin bought 3 books. And so our second book came out in July. The next one comes out in July, or in August, I think. And it's to me, it's the breakfast. The shortest way to say it's the Breakfast Club meets Scooby-Doo.
I was gonna say it looks like a contemporary Scooby-Doo. It really does.
That's great. Yeah.
And
we're really inspired by movies and media of the 80s, because we're both kids of the 80s and 90s. And we really wanted to bring a lot of heart and a lot of soul to these 5 characters, and that's the most important thing to me about the series, is the development of the characters. But they go on some pretty incredible and like really sort of magical, enchanted adventures, which has been an unbelievable amount of fun to write, because working on a graphic novel is really interesting, right? Especially with a co-writer, because you're really writing a script, and then Steve Homaker, who's our illustrator, that poor guy gets our like weird manuscript, is like, okay, I guess I'll make this a graphic novel now. But it's been really fun to work with, of course, with Prescott, but with Steve as well, because it's really been a group effort to get this to where it is, and we're so happy with it. It's really fun.
That's fantastic. I have one last question. I brought this up to you before, but damn, you look like Sal Vulcano.
I know.
You said you get it all the time. How often do people say it to you? And you said people have bought you drinks about this?
People bought me drinks. Cops have let me through like a barrier, like during a parade.
From Impractical Jokers, in case anyone doesn't know. Yes.
And the best thing is, and I can't believe you're bringing this up, because when I say goodbye to you, I'm actually headed to New Jersey, because I'm publishing Murr. So Murr is also an Impractical Joker.
Wow.
And I'm going to his first school event in New Jersey today to see him. And, it's so funny. And he's like the nicest guy in the world. So when Murr came in for the meeting, his name is James, when he came in for the meeting to talk about this idea that he had, it's called Area 51 Interns. It's so fun, super action-packed, like all funny as heck. It's like, he writes with a co-writer named Carson, and they're just nailing it. And so I'm like, is he gonna think I look like Sal? Because I don't know, So he walks in and we're talking and everything. And at the end, I was like, look, I have to say that so many people, and he's like, say you look like Sal. And I was like, yes. And he was like, it's unreal to me how much you look like him. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
it's incredible. It really is. I told you, my kids did a double take on the screen when they saw your picture. They stopped. They think, you're interviewing him? Like,
I know. It happens a lot. When they had a new season a couple of years ago, there was a huge poster in Times Square. And my friend Adam, who I don't see a lot, but my friend Adam, I get a text from like in the middle of the day, like, are you on a TV show? And I was like, first of all, you would know that. Like, I would, you know, like you would know if I was on a TV show, but no, that's not.
Well, you do look like it. It's like uncanny. But again, Francesco, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. This is a delight.
Yeah, it was so much fun speaking to you, and you're very gracious. And we look forward to all your future work. And
thank you. Thank you. This was like a review of my life. I really appreciate it.
You want us to bring out the guest stars now? Your third grade teacher.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
So this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Ike Eisenmann. And again, we give a special thanks to Francesco Sedita. And please subscribe.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast.